diverging. What are you seeking to establish, or what are you seeking to convey to us by diverging on this?
Commissioner, if one looks at, and later we will come to it because I've had the media conference of General Mkhwanazi transcribed. If one looks at the transcript, it looks like, wow, this is something that's going on, it's just happening. But actually it's been going on for donkey's years. And to have it suddenly thrust into the public eye on the 6th of July last year, I will be later explaining that, in my opinion, that actually there's another motive for what happened last year, and we'll come to that later, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. And in fact, the point about Senior Superintendent Pete Meyer you make at your page 3, at the top of page 3, that first paragraph, what you just alluded to.
Yes, I mentioned, sorry, ma'am, I didn't catch
No,
it.
I was saying the point about the arrest of Senior Superintendent Pete Meyer
Yes.
you make at the top of your
I've
page
covered that
3.
as an example, so I've gone way back.
Yes.
In the 90s.
Yes.
And then I come forward with a couple of examples in the last 20 years, serious examples, which are common cause.
And my second question is in relation to the statement you make about General Mkhwanazi, and you say at the bottom of your page 1, General Mkhwanazi has known about the links between organized crime and SAPS for many years. My reading of your statement, unless I missed it, does not seem to cover the knowledge that you attribute to General Mkhwanazi in this regard. Do you deal with this aspect in your statement? His knowledge of links between organized crime and SAPS?
Yes, I think what we'll come to later is not only his knowledge, but the steps he took, in my opinion, unlawful steps, to deal with one of the senior police officials that was involved in the penetration of organized crime into the criminal justice system. But I think I'll come back to that later.
All right. Thank you for that. That then would bring us to your paragraph 1.2. Having then said something about Senior Superintendent Pete Meyer and the events of 1990 to make the point that the problem is historical, you then at page 3, 1.2, deal with Mr. Glenn Agliotti and Commissioner Jackie Silebi. As you are aware, I think that is that relationship and its outcome has been ventilated for a long time and quite in depth in the public domain. So with that in mind, would you like to deal with your contents of paragraph 1.2,
yes,
perhaps by way of summary?
Thank you. Commissioners, I'm not going to read the whole of 1.2 out because it's just, it's common course. But I've underlined a couple of important portions. 1.2.3, I've said Mr. Agliotti made his immoral living out of importing and exporting narcotics and counterfeit cigarettes. He often moved drugs and/or counterfeit cigarettes with a police escort arranged by a certain Captain Paul Stammet. Captain Stammet was not even a real police officer. He had been appointed by Commissioner Silebi at Mr. Agliotti's request. He was not even on the police's payroll system and had never undergone any police training or fitting out of uniform. But the sad part about it is he had a police identity badge that was issued by Commissioner Silebi. And then I've said Mr. Agliotti's other accomplices, and this is common cause, it's in the judgments which we'll refer to, include a security company owner, Mr. Clinton Nassif. Mr. Nassif also bribed Commissioner Silebi so that he could expedite the issue of firearm licenses for a security company. Mr. Nassif later supplied the same firearm that was used to murder Mr. Brett Kebbel in September 2005. Commissioner Silebi interfered in the investigation by allowing Mr. Kebbel's Mercedes, in which he was murdered, to be removed from Norwood Police Station by a brother-in-law of one of the murderers to a car body workshop where it was cleaned of all forensic trace evidence. And then I've attached, I refer on page 5 of my statement, I've referred to documents which are attached, which make sober reading. Annexure B1 is the first draft confession made by Mr. Agliotti to the Scorpions in his attempt to obtain indemnity in return for implicating Commissioner Celebi. Annexure B2 was the judgment of the High Court on sentencing Commissioner Celebi. And Annexure B3 is the judgment of the Supreme Court of Appeal dismissing the appeal of Commissioner Celebi against his sentence. And I think it's common course, Commissioners, that the level of penetration was such, and it's made clear in Annexure B, which is referenced on page 4 at 1.2.7, it's made clear that the value of the drugs that were seized were 200 million rand. And those were seized by the, what was then called the Scorpions, or the DSO, the Directorate for Special Operations. And that was based on information which I supplied to them at the time when I had infiltrated that.
So if one has regard to your paragraph 1.2.3 and 1.2.4, where you make the conclusions that Mr. Celebi, or Commissioner Celebi, maintained relations with persons such as Mr. Agliotti and Captain Paul Stemmet, who made an immoral living out of importing and exporting narcotics and counterfeit cigarettes, that's on the one, and Mr. Celebi, Commissioner Celebi rather, being bribed by one Mr. Clinton Nassif. Those facts you do not know, you don't have personal knowledge of, you derive from the documents that you listed, your paragraph 1.2.10. A reading of those documents will lead to the same conclusion.
In fact, I do have personal knowledge, but I've used the documents to prove that personal knowledge. In fact, the morning after Brett Kebbel was murdered, which I still, very distinct in my head, he was murdered on the 15th of September, 2005. And on the morning of the 16th, the McDonald's at Bruma, who gave me the information about the gun that was used to kill Mr. Kebbel. So all that information is not hearsay, but it happens to be contained in the court judgments. So it actually confirms my personal knowledge.
But for purposes of your testimony to the Commission today, you rely on these documents specifically?
That is correct.
Thank you. Is there any other comment you'd like to make regarding the relationship between Commissioner Celebi and Mr. Agliotti before we turn to your paragraph 1.3, where you deal with another relationship?
Now, I'm really happy for the commissioners to, in their own time, to read the evidence and draw their own conclusions, because I believe it's quite compelling.
Yes. Then if we stay with your paragraph 5, your page 5 rather, at paragraph 1.3, you have a subtopic, Radovan Krejcir, General Mabasa, and Colonel Steyn. Now, at page 6, you give quite an extensive background to this particular topic. It's at page 7, you then deal directly with the relationship between Mr. Krejcir and General Mabasa on the one hand, and further on at page 9, you deal with Mr. Krejcir and Colonel Steyn. So let's take it.
Let me just place on record that I was involved in a totally different capacity on issues relating to Mr. Agliotti, the murder of Mr. Brett Kebbel, issues that related to Mr. Stemmet and even Mr. Nassif, but the context related to the decision that had been taken by Mr. Vusi Pikoli to prosecute General Celebi. And then Mr. Mshe, or Advocate Mshe, came in to replace Mr. Pikoli, but he was an acting NDPP. And this is how I then got involved. Advocate Mshe wanted to know whether or not he should reverse the decision of Advocate Piccoli. A four-person panel was appointed to look at that decision by Mr. Piccoli and to pronounce on whether the four people were of the view that Mr. Piccoli was correct in taking the decision. I chaired that four-person panel, and our decision was that Mr. Piccoli's decision was correct. I thought I should just place it on record that I had that involvement on some of the issues or some of the facts that you are touching on.
Thank you, Chair. Understood.
Thank you.
In fact, thank you, Commissioner, for that. I was fully aware of all that, so I'm grateful that you still have that memory at the time. And in some ways, it's rather unfortunate or coincidental that we are sitting here today in the college named after the then Justice Minister, who took, in my opinion, an unlawful step together with the then President in suspending Vusi Piccoli, because I understood that that suspension, in fact, was aimed at preventing the arrest and charging of Commissioner Celebi. However, that's my opinion. But obviously, I was very happy when in January of 2008, that four-man committee issued the...
It was a four-person, we actually had a woman.
There you go. I used the word man as in human. So I was very happy with the outcome of it, because I had actually left the country because there was a threat against my life for raising all those issues. So I had temporarily exited myself from the country for my own safety. So that was how tight things were in those days. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan. But as I understand, your testimony today doesn't relate to that part of things that the Chair highlights. He's just placing it on record. You are dealing with the criminal charges and trials that subsequently took place.
And I think if you want to get the crux of what I'm saying, it is that the Agliotti syndicate, which was a drug cartel and counterfeit cigarette cartel, they had well and truly infiltrated the criminal justice system and were utilizing, at the highest level in the criminal justice system, their contacts to enable them to continue with their criminal activities undetected.
Thank you. If you are ready, then we're ready to turn to the next set of relationships, and this time is between Radovan Krejcir and General Mabasa on the one hand, and Colonel Steyn on the other.
Yes.
I would perhaps suggest that you consider reading paragraph 1.3 and overleaf under the heading background. 1.3 at page 5.
Yes.
That would give us an introduction into the topic. And then you could highlight what you consider particularly important under background at page 6. You don't have to deal with that page extensively.
So for that purpose, I'll just read out 1.3. And I say that in this section, I will first give background information on Mr. Krejcir. Then I will deal with senior police officials who I identified were on Radovan Krejcir's payroll. I refer to the case of Krejcir for 3 reasons. First, it is another obvious example showing that the issue of criminals infiltrating the police, ostensibly prompting the press conference of General Mkhwanazi, is nothing new. Second, it involved multiple attempts on my life. Third, it involved a corrupt police officer who resurfaced as a witness at this commission. Now, when I refer to him as a corrupt police officer, that is my opinion, because he hasn't been convicted of that, but I'll explain why I refer to him as a corrupt police officer. And then, if I may move forward, I've given some background information on page 6. It's not my intention to read through that. It's there, it's on the record.
Yes.
In respect of page 7, I talk about Mr. Krejcir and General Mabasa.
So that is the first relationship with Mr. Krejcir.
Exactly. And what I talk about there, and what I've written there, that's my sworn statement. I can say it much quicker than what's written there.
Yes, please.
What happened was, I was investigating Radovan Krejcir for a myriad of crimes, lots of crimes. And by the way, I was doing this as a public interest matter. You will notice from my CV that I received awards in 2000 and 2001 from the Canadian government and the Australian government for activities that I used to expose and deal with human trafficking in South Africa, not in other parts of the world. But I got those award commendations from the Australian and Canadian governments because they recognized the work that I was doing. And I had identified Radovan Krejcir as being heavily involved with a gentleman from a chain of strip clubs known as Teasers. And I had identified that he was involved with importing, for the want of a better expression, ladies to work in these type of clubs. And I was trying to get the police to take action against him. And in every turn I was failing. I couldn't get the police to pay any attention to it. And I had written to Anwar Ramat, who at the time was the head of DPCI, and I sent him a very detailed breakdown of what I believed Radovan Krejcir was up to. And then all of a sudden I got a call out of the blue one day from the crime intelligence head in Gauteng, which was Major General Joey Mabasa. And he phoned me out of the blue. I hadn't been in communication with him ever before that. And he invited me to his office. I went there and he told me, no, he heard I've got information about Radovan Krejcir and he wants to take down Radovan Krejcir. I thought, wow, this is great. So I gave him a file on Radovan Krejcir. An hour later, I get a phone call from a source who's present in a meeting with Radovan Krejcir and tells me, Paul, that guy you've just met with, you don't know what you're doing. I said, what do you mean? He said, that guy is on his way to see Radovan Krejcir with the file that you've given him. So I thought, wow, this Major General in the police is now going to see this criminal that I'm investigating. So let me see what's going on here. So I carried out my own investigation into General Mabasa. And what do I find? I find that his wife is a director of a company with Radovan Krejcir's wife. I was shocked. So of course I exposed all this, and what I find to be ironical, and it's covered on page, at the bottom of page 7 and page 8, is that the wife of General Mabasa became a director of that company on the 10th of October 2009. And she resigned as a director of that company on the 30th of June 2010. And it's no coincidence that the date of her resignation is 2 weeks after I had exposed the fact that General Mabasa's wife was in business with Radovan Krejcir's wife. And it was all over the media, and then she promptly resigned. Needless to say, my complaint, which is a very serious complaint, which I sent to General Zermatt and General Sabir at the time was the head of DPCI in Gauteng, and I sent them a very serious complaint, and within a week or two General Mabasa was suspended, and then he was later given a golden handshake. But what was interesting to me is that the registered address of that company was 64 First Avenue in Edenvale. And it came out during the trial of the murder of Uwe Gambella, a German who had been kidnapped